So I was thinking about last year's Pokemon Detective Pikachu movie the other day, as well as the upcoming Super Mario movie being worked on by Illumination, and it got me thinking, what other Nintendo games could be adapted to the big screen, and what would they be like? How are we today, everybody? I hope you're all good. My name is Peter, and for this video, I'd like to talk about what Nintendo games I'd like to see be made into feature-length films. While opinions on movie adaptations of video games can be pretty mixed, I think last year's Detective Pikachu movie has proven that they can be pulled off quite effectively, so I thought I'd talk about which games under Nintendo's belt could work really well on top of it. But before we get started, let me know what Nintendo franchises and games you'd like to see adapted to the big screen in the comments, and why. What direction would they take? I want you guys to use your imagination and visualize some cool ideas. I may even feature some of them in a future video. So, without further ado, let's get into it. These are the Nintendo games I'd like to see become movies. The Rocky films starring Sylvester Stallone are regarded as iconic classics, as we follow an underdog boxer's journey to stardom. So how about making a sports drama based on Nintendo's own version of Rocky? I'm of course referring to Little Mac from Punch-Out! I feel like there's quite a bit of potential to explore what goes on outside of the ring in the Punch-Out! Universe, which rarely gets touched on besides the short training montages we see throughout, and it would be interesting to explore Little Mac's motives for training to be the very best. Perhaps we could also go into Doc Lewis's backstory and his boxing career before he even met Mac. I could imagine the fight scenes being more over the top and cartoony like in the games as a way of making sure it isn't simply dismissed as a Rocky clone, as Punch-Out! Is full of all sorts of quirky opponents oozing with personality that Mac has to face. Perhaps we could get actual real life boxers to make appearances in order to make this sort of film the real deal, at least when Nintendo had the budget to hire them. After all, Mike Tyson himself was the final boss in the NES title, so things would come full circle this way. I always thought the Star Fox series could be very versatile when it comes to making a big screen appearance. It's one of Miyamoto's more story-driven creations, considering his reputation for not putting as much emphasis on story in recent years, and the series has shown that it can pull off different styles of storytelling. A 2D animated short was made to promote Star Fox Zero on the Wii U leading up to its release, so I could very well see an animated movie done in this manner. However, what I had in mind was another collaboration with the Jim Henson Company to do Muppet-style features like we've seen in the skits from E3 2015. We already have puppets of Fox, Falco and Peppy, so if they're still around, why not put them to further use, as well as seeing puppetized versions of other series favourites like Wolf, General Pepper and Slippy. Miyamoto has stated that the way the characters move in Star Fox was originally inspired by the likes of the Thunderbirds, so I think it would be really cool to see this source of inspiration come full circle, especially since puppetry-based cinema hasn't been all that common in recent years. When it comes to the Mario universe, many would tell you that the story isn't the main appeal behind it, but there are a few exceptions where the stories told within these titles can resonate with players on a grander level, and this of course is mostly thanks to the RPG starring everyone's favourite Plumber Boy. However, when it came to choosing which of the RPGs I'd like to see adapted into a movie, I was pretty torn. Pun possibly intended if you see where I'm going with this. Super Mario RPG was the one that started the whole idea of mixing Mario with more story-driven RPGs, while the Mario and Luigi series has a unique sense of humour that would lend itself well in the comedy genre. Despite this, I thought I'd ultimately go with Paper Mario in the end, because I think there is so much more room to visually tell the story in a creative manner compared to the other RPGs. This is due to the paper-like nature of the characters and settings, therefore lending itself well to a film utilising paper-cut animation, the same technique used in shows such as South Park. It would provide a completely unique style compared to some of my other ideas in this video, and they could go crazy with paper physics while also telling an ambitious story that the series is known for. The Pikmin short movies we got on the Nintendo eShop in 2014 were great examples of how Miyamoto's plant-like creatures were the ideal candidates for his first attempt at making 3D animated short films, so why not take it to the next level and make a full feature-length film out of the concept? These short movies mostly showed how the Pikmin themselves interacted with one another in different situations, whether it was working together under Olimar's instructions to take apart a large construction site for treasure, or finding solutions to help a fellow Pikmin trapped in a bottle. One comparison for what a Pikmin movie could be like would be the first half of Pixar's WALL-E, where there's little to no dialogue required to convey what's going on, and I can see this being really fitting for Pikmin, as the short films have already demonstrated that this can work really well. Perhaps the film could mostly explore the actual Pikmin's perspective of the world, which would set it apart from the games, as they're much more about exploring Olimar's views on a world that is alien to him, so it'd be rather refreshing to see things from a different perspective that we don't see all that much in the games. Here's one that I think would be ideal. The original Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube is notorious for having a spooky yet charming feel to it, something which was unique coming from the Mario universe at the time, and over the years, it's established itself as a heavy hitter for Nintendo consoles after the success of the 2 sequels we've seen in recent years. Seeing as there's also an arcade title developed by Capcom, let's expand its presence in the media by turning it into a movie. When thinking about how a Luigi's Mansion movie could be achieved, the reveal trailer for Simon and Richter Belmont in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has got to be a prime example of what can be done with it, as it has shown that Luigi's ghost hunting adventures have a lot of cinematic potential when it comes to atmosphere, especially in terms of sound design. Using this trailer as a reference point, it could be a light-hearted take on the horror genre, or, as an alternative idea, I could see the franchise fitting quite well with a Tim Burton styled flick, where it's generally family friendly but still pulls off a spooky vibe that's fitting for a Halloween night in. As a quick disclaimer for this next entry, I've counted this next title as a Nintendo franchise because they were the ones that published its original release. I am aware that they technically didn't make this game, and that future releases of this game haven't even been published by them anymore, as this script was written before these events. I didn't want to remove this entry as I thought it was a cool idea. With that cleared up, let's get on with it. With the insane levels of success that superhero movies have seen in the past decade, especially with the Marvel Cinematic Universe breaking box office records with Avengers Endgame, why not see Nintendo's own superhero franchise be thrown into the mix to set it apart? While many would argue that superhero movies have been getting oversaturated, I think a movie based on Platinum Games' The Wonderful 101 would freshen the genre up, perhaps going for a rather cartoony vibe, similar to Pixar's The Incredibles, rather than Marvel or DC's more serious approaches to superhero storytelling. It might be challenging to implement so many characters into one film all at once, because I don't see an extended shared universe with these guys happening, seeing as it was a rather niche title on a console that didn't do so hot in the end, but I still think it could have the potential to be a refreshing take on the superhero genre if done right. Perhaps it could be done in a style that feels as if it brings a comic book to life, something that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse managed to pull off rather effectively, because the game already does something similar at times, with stylized text boxes and images of characters appearing during dialogue. When it comes to the discussion of Nintendo franchises being adapted to movies, of course The Legend of Zelda will be brought up, seeing as it is not only one of Nintendo's most well-known series, but also because the expansive world building and lore sets itself up for huge big screen potential. However, one game in the series that I particularly choose over the rest would have to be Majora's Mask. The reason I say this is because Majora's Mask tells one of the darkest stories the series has seen yet, and if all the different fan theories about the game's nature tells you anything, it's that it is so open to interpretation, which a film adaptation can heavily take advantage of. It also oozes with atmosphere and charm, thanks to the assortment of weird and wonderful characters you encounter, as well as the constant dread of the moon about to fall, and its Groundhog Day-like aspect of repeating the same 3 days over and over again could be interesting to see being handled. I almost opted for including Link's Awakening as my choice for this list, as that game in particular is one of my favourite Zelda titles in terms of story, due to the whole moral dilemma of waking up the Windfish, but personally, I think Majora's Mask is the one with the most potential to make a fantastic feature. I just thought Link's Awakening was also worth mentioning because I also see some potential there. Breath of the Wild, on the other hand, is something that I could see adapted into an ongoing animated series, kind of reminiscent to Avatar: The Last Airbender as an example. Anyway, those were some initial ideas I had for some Nintendo movies I'd like to see. I hope you've enjoyed them. I may even make a part 2 as more ideas come to my head. As I've stated at the start of the video, let's get some ideas going in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, see you later.